When everything falls apart, a letter to your broken heart, rest, and let the storm pass. A journey from desperation to healing. I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me. I see you sitting there, reading these words, carrying a weight that no one else fully understands. Maybe you're holding yourself together with duct tape and sheer willpower. Maybe you collapsed weeks ago and you're still on the floor. Maybe you're smiling on the outside while screaming on the inside. I see the brave face you wear. I see the "I'm fine" you tell everyone. I see the 3M staring at the ceiling. I see the tears you've learned to cry silently so no one hears. And I need you to know something: you are not alone in this darkness. Let me tell you about someone who had it all figured out, or so everyone thought. Successful career, loving family, the perfect life on the surface, until the day their partner of 12 years confessed to living a lie, until the day their foundation crumbled, until the day they found themselves on the bathroom floor, sobbing so hard they couldn't breathe, whispering, "I don't know how to survive this." Or let me tell you about the dreamer, the one who poured their life savings, their reputation, and 3 years of 18-hour days into their vision. They believed in it. They sacrificed everything for it. And then they watched it collapse in 6 brutal weeks. The investors pulled out. The partnerships fell through. And they were left with nothing but debt and the devastating question, if I'm not this, then who am I? Or maybe I should tell you about the survivor, the one who lived through something unspeakable in childhood, something that carved itself into their bones and taught them that the world is dangerous and they are powerless. They spent 30 years trying to outrun their trauma, building walls so high they couldn't even see over them anymore, until one day the walls collapsed and they had to face everything they'd been running from. These are real people, different stories, different storms, but the same devastating question echoing through each of their souls: how do I survive this? If you're asking that question right now, stay with me, because what I'm about to share changed everything for them and for countless others who thought they were too broken to heal. And it can change everything for you too. The lie we've been told, here's the lie you've been fed your entire life: if you're strong enough, if you try hard enough, if you fight hard enough, you can overcome anything. Push through the pain. Never give up. Winners never quit. Fight for what you want. And so when trauma hits you like a freight train, you think you need to fight it. When failure knocks you to your knees, you think you need to immediately get back up. When a relationship shatters your heart into 1,000 pieces, you think you need to gather all those pieces and superglue them back together before anyone notices you're bleeding. You've been taught that rest is for the weak, that stopping means quitting, that if you're not constantly moving forward, you're falling behind. And that lie is killing you. Let me paint you a different picture. Imagine you're caught in a riptide. The ocean is pulling you away from shore with a force you can't fight. What does every lifeguard, every survival expert tell you? Don't fight the current. You'll exhaust yourself and drown. Instead, you float. You conserve your energy. You let the current take you parallel to the shore until it releases you, and then only then do you swim back to safety. Your trauma, your failure, your broken relationship, these are riptides, and you've been thrashing against them until you have nothing left. The one with the broken marriage tried to fight. They went into immediate damage control mode. They read every relationship book. They begged, they pleaded, they tried to be perfect. They exhausted themselves trying to fix something that was already broken, trying to control something they had no power over. And 3 months later, they were more broken than when they started. The one whose dream collapsed did the same thing. The day after their business failed, they were already planning the next venture. They couldn't sit with the failure. They couldn't bear the feeling of being unsuccessful. So they pushed, and they hustled, and they networked, all while carrying an unhealed wound that bled into everything they touched. What if I told you there's another way? The sound of breaking. Before we go further, we need to talk about what breaking actually feels like. Because I think you know, breaking feels like waking up and forgetting, just for one beautiful second, that your world has fallen apart, and then remembering and feeling it crash over you all over again. Breaking feels like crying in your car before you go into work because you need to get it out before you put on the mask. Breaking feels like questioning everything you thought you knew about yourself, about others, about how the world works. Breaking feels like being exhausted from doing nothing because trauma is exhausting. Heartbreak is exhausting. Failure is exhausting. The trauma survivor described it this way. It was like I'd been holding up a building with my bare hands for 30 years, and when I finally admitted I couldn't hold it anymore and let it fall, the crash was deafening. Everything I'd built to protect myself came down, and I was terrified there would be nothing left of me underneath the rubble. That's what breaking feels like there might be nothing left. But here's what they discovered, and what I desperately need you to understand. The breaking isn't the end. The breaking is the beginning. You see, sometimes we have to break before we can heal. Sometimes the version of us that's trying so hard to hold it together is actually preventing us from becoming who we need to be. Think about it. A bone that healed incorrectly has to be re-broken before it can be set right. A building with a faulty foundation has to be torn down before it can be rebuilt properly. And sometimes a heart that's learned all the wrong lessons about love, trust, and worth has to break completely before it can learn the right ones. Your breaking isn't evidence that you're weak. Your breaking is evidence that you're human, that you've been carrying something too heavy for too long, that you've been trying to survive something that was designed to destroy you. And the fact that you're still here, still reading these words, still breathing, that's not weakness. That's extraordinary strength. But here's the crucial part. Surviving the storm doesn't mean fighting it. It means finding shelter and letting it pass. The permission you've been waiting for. I want to give you permission for something. Permission you might not even realize you need. You have permission to stop fighting right now. You have permission to not be okay. You have permission to fall apart without immediately knowing how to put yourself back together. You have permission to rest. I can feel some of you resisting this, but if I stop fighting, I'll lose everything. If I admit I'm not okay, people will think I'm weak. If I rest, the pain will catch up to me. So let me tell you what happened when the one with the broken marriage finally stopped fighting. After 3 months of trying to save their relationship, of analyzing every conversation, of losing themselves in an attempt to be enough, their therapist looked at them and said, "What if you just stopped? What if you let it fall apart? What if you gave yourself permission to not fix this?" They were horrified. If I stop trying, it means I've given up. It means I failed. No, the therapist said gently. It means you're finally acknowledging reality. Your relationship is already broken. You can't fix it alone, and trying to is only breaking you further. What if, instead of trying to save the relationship, you focused on saving yourself? That night, they stopped. They stopped texting. They stopped planning. They stopped trying to be perfect. And they cried. They cried like they'd never cried before. They cried for the relationship they thought they had. They cried for the future they'd imagined. They cried for the person they'd been before all of this. And you know what happened? For the first time in months, they slept through the night. Not because the pain was gone, but because they'd finally stopped resisting it. When the one whose dream collapsed hit rock bottom, and I mean truly hit it, not the first bottom, but the third one. The one where they couldn't pretend anymore. They called their best friend at 2 a.m. and said, "I can't do this. I can't bounce back. I can't start over. I don't have it in me." The friend said something that changed everything. "Then don't bounce back. Don't start over. Just breathe. Just make it to tomorrow. That's all you have to do right now." They gave themselves permission to be a failure. Not forever. Just for that moment. They gave themselves permission to not have a plan, to not have the answers, to not be the go-getter, the success story. And in that permission, they found something unexpected: relief. The relief of finally being honest. The relief of putting down the weight. The relief of saying, "I can't do this right now, and that's okay." What the storm is trying to teach you, here's a truth that might be hard to hear. Your storm isn't random. It isn't punishment. It isn't evidence that you're cursed or fundamentally flawed. Your storm is trying to teach you something, and the only way to learn it is to stop running and listen. For the trauma survivor, the storm was teaching them that they couldn't outrun their past, that the child who was hurt all those years ago was still inside them, still waiting to be seen, still waiting to be told it wasn't their fault, that healing didn't mean forgetting or being strong enough to not be affected. Healing meant turning around, looking at that wounded inner child, and finally giving them the protection and love they deserved. But they couldn't learn this while running. They had to stop. They had to rest in the discomfort of facing their trauma. And that rest looked like sitting in therapy sessions where they cried so hard they couldn't speak. It looked like canceling plans because they needed to be alone with their healing. It looked like letting themselves be vulnerable for the first time in 3 decades. For the one whose relationship ended, the storm was teaching them about codependency, about how they'd learned to find their worth in being needed and fixing others and being the perfect partner. The storm was revealing that they'd lost themselves years ago, and this crisis was an opportunity, a painful, devastating opportunity to find themselves again. For the one who faced failure, the storm was teaching them that their worth wasn't tied to their achievements, that the voice in their head that said, "You're only valuable when you're successful," was a lie they'd been believing since childhood. The storm was stripping away everything external so they could finally confront the internal. What is your storm trying to teach you? Maybe it's teaching you that you can't control everything, no matter how hard you try. Maybe it's teaching you that the people you love can still hurt you, and that doesn't mean love isn't real. Maybe it's teaching you that your definition of success was someone else's definition, not your own. Maybe it's teaching you that you've been running from yourself, and it's time to come home. Maybe it's teaching you that being vulnerable isn't weakness. It's the only path to genuine connection. Maybe it's teaching you that the walls you built to protect yourself have become your prison. You can't learn these lessons in the middle of the fight. You can only learn them in the rest, in the stillness, in the surrender. The anatomy of rest. Let's get practical. Because rest and let the storm pass sounds beautiful, but what does it actually mean when you're drowning? Rest doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing different things. Rest means creating tiny moments of safety. For the one with a broken relationship, this meant morning coffee on the porch, 5 minutes where they didn't think about their partner. Just coffee. Just birds. Just breath. For the one who failed, this meant calling their friend every morning and saying 3 things they were grateful for. Not big things, small things. I'm grateful for hot water. I'm grateful my dog still loves me. I'm grateful I made it through yesterday. Rest means setting boundaries around your healing. The trauma survivor had to tell their family, "I can't talk about this right now. I'm processing something, and I need space." They had to stop explaining themselves to people who wouldn't understand. They had to protect their healing like it was sacred, because it was. Rest means seeking help without shame. All of them had to admit they couldn't do this alone. They had to sit in therapy. They had to join support groups. They had to let people see them at their worst and trust that they wouldn't be abandoned. This is crucial. Asking for help is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's the acknowledgement that we were never meant to carry these burdens alone. Rest means being honest about what you can handle. Some days getting out of bed is enough. Some days taking a shower is a victory. Some days not ending your life is heroic. Stop measuring your healing against other people's timelines. Stop shitting all over yourself. I should be over this by now. I should be stronger. I should be able to handle this. No. You should be exactly where you are, because where you are is where you are. Fighting that reality only creates more suffering. Rest means grieving what you lost. You lost something in this storm. Maybe you lost a person. Maybe you lost a dream. Maybe you lost your innocence, your trust, your sense of safety. Maybe you lost the version of yourself you thought you'd always be. That loss is real. It deserves to be mourned. You can't skip grief. You can only go through it, and grief isn't linear. It comes in waves. Sometimes you'll feel fine, and then a song will play or a memory will surface, and you'll be right back in the depths of it. That's normal. That's grief. Honor it. Rest means trusting the process even when you can't see the outcome. This is the hardest part. When you're in the storm, you can't see the other side. You can't imagine feeling whole again. You can't picture a version of yourself that's happy, healthy, healed. But that version exists. It's waiting for you on the other side of this storm. And every moment you spend resting, grieving, healing, you're moving toward it, even when it doesn't feel like it. Even when you feel stuck. Even when you wonder if healing is even possible for someone like you. It is. I promise you it is. The transformation, let me tell you what happened to the one whose relationship ended 6 months after they stopped fighting, after they let their marriage end, after they stopped trying to be enough for someone who couldn't see their value. They were sitting in a coffee shop, and they realized something stunning. They were okay, not happy yet, not healed completely, but okay. They'd survived the thing they thought would destroy them. And in surviving it, they discovered a strength they didn't know they had. Not the strength to fight and control and fix, but the strength to surrender, to grieve, to rebuild. They started painting again, something they'd given up years ago. They reconnected with friends they'd neglected. They looked in the mirror and recognized themselves again. Not someone's partner, not the fixer, just themselves, and that was enough. Let me tell you about the one whose dream collapsed. A year after their business failed, they were working a regular job. Not glamorous. Not the entrepreneur life. Just a regular job that paid the bills, and they were content. They weren't chasing the next big thing. They weren't trying to prove themselves. They were learning to be present, to measure success differently, to find worth in things that couldn't be taken away. They started mentoring others, sharing their story, their failures, their lessons. And they realized that their greatest contribution wasn't going to be a successful business. It was going to be the wisdom born from their failure. The ability to look someone else in the eye who was going through their own collapse and say, I know, I've been there. You're going to make it. Let me tell you about the trauma survivor. 2 years into trauma therapy, they did something they'd never done before. They trusted someone completely. They let someone see all of them, including the broken parts, and that person didn't leave. That person loved them anyway. They still had hard days. They still had triggers. Certain sounds, certain smells, certain situations would transport them right back to that place of fear. But they'd learned how to take care of themselves when the storm came back. They'd learned that healing isn't linear, and that's okay. They'd learned that the wounded child inside them deserved protection, and they could provide it now. These transformations didn't happen because they fought harder. They happened because they finally stopped fighting and started healing. They happened because they gave themselves permission to rest, to break, to not have all the answers. They happened because they trusted the process even when they couldn't see the end. And the same transformation is possible for you. Your invitation, so here's my invitation to you, the one who's reading this in the middle of your storm. Stop fighting. Just for today, I'm not asking you to give up forever. I'm not asking you to quit on your relationships, your dreams, your healing journey. I'm asking you to take one day where you stop resisting what is and start accepting where you are. Today, can you give yourself permission to be broken? Can you look at the pieces of your life scattered around you and say, this is where I am. This is real, and I don't have to fix it today. Can you take one deep breath and acknowledge that you're carrying something impossibly heavy? Can you set it down just for a moment and let yourself rest? Here's what I want you to do right now. Place your hand on your heart. Feel it beating. That heartbeat is evidence that you're still here, that you survived everything that tried to destroy you, every trauma, every failure, every heartbreak. You survived it all. Your heart is still beating. Say this out loud. I am in a storm, and I don't have to have it figured out right now. I can rest. I can let the storm pass. And when it does, I'll still be here. Say it again and again until some part of you begins to believe it. Choose one tiny act of kindness toward yourself. Not tomorrow, not when you feel better. Right now, maybe it's making yourself tea. Maybe it's putting on music you love. Maybe it's sending yourself a kind text that you can read when you need it. Maybe it's just crying without judging yourself for it. Maybe it's forgiving yourself for not being where you think you should be. You don't have to heal all at once. You don't have to have a plan. You don't have to be strong. You just have to be. And in that being, in that rest, something miraculous happens. You start to heal. Not because you forced it, not because you fought for it, but because you finally created the conditions for healing to happen naturally. The storm is still raging around you. I'm not going to lie and say it's not, but you don't have to be out in it. You can find shelter. You can rest. You can wait. And while you wait, while you rest, your body, your mind, your soul, they're doing the work of healing. Even when you can't feel it, even when you can't see it, the healing is happening. Trust it. The promise I'm going to make you a promise, And I need you to hold on to this. When everything feels hopeless, the storm will pass. I know it doesn't feel like it right now. I know it feels like you'll be in this pain forever. But you won't. One day, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next month, but one day you'll wake up and realize you made it through the night without crying. One day you'll laugh at something and mean it. One day you'll tell your story and feel proud instead of ashamed. One day you'll meet someone else who's in their storm, and you'll be able to look them in the eye and say, I know, I've been there, and I made it through, and so will you. Your breaking is not your ending. It's your beginning, the person you're becoming on the other side of this storm. They're going to be incredible, not because the storm didn't hurt them, but because they learned how to hold themselves through it. They learned how to rest. They learned how to heal. So rest now, beautiful soul. Rest knowing that you are held. Rest knowing that this storm has an end. Rest knowing that the very fact that you're still here means you have everything you need to make it through. Let the storm pass. It will. It always does, and when it's over, when the sun breaks through the clouds, you'll be standing there. Changed, yes. Scarred, perhaps. But alive. And stronger than you ever imagined possible. I see you. I believe in you, and I'm holding space for your healing, even when you can't hold it for yourself. Rest now. The rebuilding will come, but first, rest. You are going to be okay, not today, but someday. And until then, just breathe, just survive, just rest. That's enough. You are enough. You have always been enough. The end with deep compassion for your journey. For everyone who's in the storm right now, may you find shelter, may you find rest, may you find healing.